results. And as a part of this topic, it's my pleasure to welcome our next speaker and to say a quick but a warm welcome to Leanne Keiller. And she is the Senior Advisor at the Center for Learning Technologies. In her presentation today, Turning In, a writing guide, not a policeman, I think is really catchy because a lot of students tend to think of Turning In as a sort of policeman that one just wants to catch you out. She will highlight the features of Turning In and that are often used by lecturers as well as supervisors. And we are looking forward to hear what you say about Turning In. Thank you so much, Leanne.
Thank you. Okay, good afternoon, everybody. I have just a few minutes today to speak to you about Turn It In. Within the Center for Learning Technologies, we have the SunLearn support desk. So we provide all the training and support to lecturers and students and administrative staff around the use of learning technologies. And one of the most commonly used features is Turn It In. Now, the question often is, why must I use Turn It In? So in SunLearn, you have the assignment tool, which can have Turn It In activated on it. But you can also use Turn It In on a forum discussion, on a workshop, on other features on the system. Now, firstly, for the purposes of research, and that's what we're speaking about today, it is a policy decision. So for avoiding plagiarism, all major assessments, that obviously includes master's and PhD theses, has to go through Turn It In or a similar plagiarism detection software. You are not allowed to submit for examination unless you have the report with you. Now, the argument often is, Turn It In is not going to pick up everything, and it's not a perfect system. So yes, anyone who has used Turn It In knows that. If you want to resubmit, you have to wait 24 hours before your next one comes up. So for a student who submits the day before the assignment is due and then resubmits an hour before the closing date, they're not going to get their report within the time limit. But I want to actually focus on the fact that it should be a developmental tool. It should not be something, yes, for policy purposes and in making sure that it is your own work. Before you submit, you can tick, this is my own work. You put a plagiarism declaration in, also according to the policy, in your work at the beginning of your thesis. It should actually be a developmental tool. It should be something that must be used throughout your writing. And this you can speak to your study leader about, or to your department if you're doing a master's by coursework with a mini dissertation. Speak to your department or the program head about using Turn It In for developing your writing ability. Because often what we see, the problem is not that people are just outright stealing someone else's work and putting it in. The problem is actually that a lot of people who are doing research don't know how to put the work into their own words. And so at a master's level, you are showing that you can do research, which means you use lots of different sources and you say, according to X, they said this, and this is in keeping with what Y has said. In a PhD, they're saying, but you must have your own voice. So now suddenly you have to write things where you are giving your own words based on 20 different references. And how are you really sure that you are using your own words? So in Turn It In, if an assignment is set up, you will see at the top, for a lecturer or for a study leader, I would suggest actually sitting with them and saying to them, this is what I would like you to set up for me. And say, can you help by making sure that the peer mark manager is activated? And I'll tell you why now. And then also make sure that it is not going to the repository. So where it says store student papers, while you are busy working on your thesis or your research paper, if that is what you are working on, they can set it so that it doesn't go in the repository, which means next time you submit, it's not going to compare your previous draft with your second draft. Because that's what people are afraid of. They say, but if I submit it now, when I submit it again in 2 months' time after I've reworked it, it's going to compare against itself. Or it submits against the proposal. So don't let it go through the repository. So make sure that if you speak to your supervisor or study leader about it, that they don't set it up in that way. The playground, I believe, or the sand pit for the postgraduate skills doesn't submit to the repository. So you can submit there as many times as you want as well. Then when they set it up, it automatically sets it up so that it checks against other students' papers, it checks against the internet, and against journal publications. Now, the other students' papers, it means it's going to check against other universities, including Stellenbosch, who have submitted. And if for some reason a high percentage comes up on the originality report for another university, there is then a formal request process where your study leader or supervisor can say, I'm going to contact UCT and ask them, can I please have access to that paper? So they can check where is this commonality coming in terms of the content. There's also the option that some people use, and that is to use a rubric. So if your study leader, especially at a master's level, wants to give you guidance in terms of how to actually set up your proposal or your assignment, your written work, they can set up a rubric which they could mark against afterwards. Now, the peer mark that I was speaking about earlier, this is something that not many people are using yet at the university, but it's a fantastic feature, especially if you are working in a group, whether you are a study group or you are a group of students in one program. You could set up the peer mark assignment feature. This allows you to review or comment on someone else's submission or self-review. So even if you are on your own, your study leader could set it up so that it allows for self-review and will then create questions that guide you in terms of saying, okay, what do you need to look for? And give comments on that. It is a fantastic tool as well if you are working on co-authoring a paper. And each person is submitting parts of it. And you can then give each other reviews on that as well. When it comes to the quick mark manager, that's where I'm going to show you specifically something that lots of supervisors, postgraduate lecturers are using now is this quick mark feature on Turnitin. So you can set up common things that you would pick up. So something like, you need to reference properly here, or you need to expand on this, or can you break this sentence up because it's a run-on sentence, which could actually be 2 sentences instead of just 1. And what's nice about the grade mark feature of Sunlearn, so now it's going to ask me to log in again, is every time a student submits to Sunlearn via Turnitin, the study leader, supervisor, lecturer would be able to go in and give feedback, very specific feedback, on the work that is being done. Now, as I said at the beginning, the reason lots of people get high scores on Sunlearn Turnitin assignments is simply because they have not learned how to synthesize information properly. And synthesizing is probably one of the most important parts when it comes to getting that score down. So I'm just going to go into one dummy assignment that I set up, and I put my own proposal into it. I'm just trying to wait for it to open now. There we go. So I've set the peer mark in, and that will allow me to go in and self-review. But if this was my supervisor or my one of my colleagues in a PhD discussion group that I belong to, they would be able to go in as well and give feedback. So what a lot of people do is they can go in and on the grade mark tool, and this is why I'm saying as a writing tool, a lecturer or study leader could go in, highlight a particular section, and then record a 3-minute voice note and say, this is really well done, but I think you should probably expand in this direction or that direction. Now, I don't know about you, but it is a very frustrating process to look at feedback on something, even if it's track changes with comments. And they say, but what do you mean by this? I'm like, but I don't know, what do you mean by what do you mean by this? You know? And it usually takes a 2-minute conversation to figure out what did they mean by saying, what do you mean by this? And especially if you have 2 supervisors or study leaders, it can get extremely frustrating and confusing. And so you could have both of your study leaders go on with the grade mark feature, either type in a comment, okay, or they could make it a one of their own commonly used that they use, and they can call it clarity, and they could write further comments on it, or as I said, they can record and they can say, but here I want you to actually change this. And when it is activated, I mean, if they have a good microphone with the headset, obviously the sound quality is much better, but any computer will be able to pick up that sound. I think if there's nothing else that you take from this session, it is, number one, you're going to have to use Learning, whether we like it or not. Number two, the postgraduate skills development Learn course has a sandpit, a turn-it-in sandpit, where you can go and submit your work over and over and over every time you want to get some feedback, and not just a week before submissions are due for examination. Do it from the start, your first draft of your first chapter. Put it in there and ask your supervisor to go on and contact either the postgraduate skills office to maybe get some help in how to use this, or your supervisor can contact the Sun Learn support desk on learn@sun is the email address, or the phone number, it's 808-2222. And ask to have a Sun Learn sandpit or turn-it-in sandpit put into their module, so that it will just be for you and your study leader. And you can then use it throughout your research process. But don't be afraid of it. So you have two options. Either if you just want for yourself and you want to see before you even submit to your study leader, the postgraduate skills turn-it-in sandpit, or get your study leader to create one for you in their own faculty or program or module, where you'd be able to submit. Study leader can give you detailed feedback every single time. For those who are study leaders in the room, if you are a supervisor, please refrain. I'm not even going to say it. I can't think of a nicer word, but refrain from looking at a Turnitin report and seeing 36%, and if every faculty has, and within faculties departments, have different cutoffs in terms of what the percentage should be. There's no hard and fast rule about what that percentage should be. Please refrain from just looking at the percentage and sending it back. Open it up. Go and look at, click on the originality, which is the red, on your feedback view, click on it and see where is that percentage coming from, and use that as a starting point for a discussion with the student around, are they struggling to synthesize the information, or is it that they haven't really understood a concept and so they've taken someone else's work and put it as is because they can't rewrite it in their own words. But it is really the crux of, what a next meeting should be about after a student submits something. It shouldn't be the percentage. The percentage, yes, for admin, logistic purposes, there would be a rule within your faculty, but it should actually be the starting point for a conversation, for a discussion, for making sure that you have a product that you know is your own voice and it is of a high quality. From my side, that's all that I really want to say. If there are any questions, please, I am more than happy to answer. Yes?
I just want to find out, I'm a PhD student, and if I want to use the sandpit before submitting to my supervisor, is there a website that you go to, or?
Yes. So you know the postgraduate skills section on the my.sun that's at the top? They have a Turnitin. Alison, I don't know if you want to jump in if I'm not saying the correct thing. So if you click on the postgraduate section, they have links to their site which would give you the access towards it. But anyone can be enrolled in the postgraduate skills space on SunLearn. Let me just get back to mine quickly, and then I can show you. Yeah, you can self-enroll into it.
And then just another question, following up, when using the sample, you don't have to be afraid that it will get stored in wherever it does get stored, so that you get marked.
No. It won't be stored because it's set that it doesn't go against the repository.
Okay. Oh, so you have to set it.
Yeah, so it has been set. Alison is from the Postgraduate Skills Office, and I know that when we've had discussions, they have assured us, and we have them double check. It's not set that it will be stored against anything.
So it's not something we have to set.
Yeah.
Okay.
But you can, if you get stuck, then you can just phone the SunLearn help desk as well, and they'll be able to help you get onto the right page.
And then the last question, sorry, in terms of you have this option where they say include your bibliography or your references. Do you want to include your references or not? What is the right answer?
I often just say include it. If that comes up as, that's why we say to study leaders, supervisors, go and check the report. Because if you want to actually see that, this person has put the entire thing through, you would be able to see it will highlight that this is where it's coming from, and it's just the references that are highlighted. But usually with the thesis, they exclude it right at the end. Just remember, for a PhD, if your document is more than, I think it's 300 pages, you are going to have to split it up. So those people who we had one recent was 480 pages. And we had to split it into 2 documents to put it through Turnitin, because it's just too large to actually handle it. So if you are a PhD student and you know it's almost time to submit and it has to go through Turnitin, give enough time to make sure that you can submit each document through if it has to be split into more than one document.
Sorry,
Yes.
how does this deal with published material? So a thesis that contains published material?
So if, again, published material in what sense? So a thesis by publication?
Yes.
Okay. So a thesis by publication, you would submit your articles as, in between your introduction and your discussion conclusion chapters. So it would most probably pick it up if that database is, where it was published, is included in its database. But again, your study leader would flag that with their report, their examination report, to say that, look, this is the case, it's by publication, and this is why it's picked up this whole thing. If it gives you a really high score because you have, let's say, 4 papers in there, then often what people will do is they will submit without the articles actually included, and then give 2 reports in to show that, you know, it was actually just the publications that brought out that high score. Yes.
May I know what really constitutes the similarity?
Okay, similarity is an exact match. So if I say the words, Donald Duck is a duck, and you've written that in your paper, it's going to pick up that I have said the exact same thing that you have said. That's what similarity, the similarity index really is.
Okay, what happens with...
Okay, so if there's a high score, if your Turnitin report comes back and there's a score of 30%, that 30% is as a whole based on your entire document. So there might be 3% from one source, 2% from another source, 1% from another source. It would then highlight that 1% of the 30% is this sentence. So sometimes it's just common sayings or phrases within a field that would then pick up. So if you're talking about something like physiotherapy, it would be range of movement is a phrase. So every time it says range of movement, it would pick it up. But that's why the supervisor would usually set up the Turnitin submission space in such a way that it would exclude small matches of, let's say, 3 to 5 words, so that it would cancel out the possibility of that being picked up as a similarity.
You set it up yourself?
Yes.
So that
Yes. So you speak to your study leader about setting up the space for you to submit, that it usually excludes small matches. People exclude small matches of between 1 and 3% or 3 to 5 words is usually the common options.
Thank
Yes.
you so much for a very informative
Pleasure.
session and some very useful and practical tips regarding Turnitin. We really appreciate your time and
It's a pleasure.
your willingness to share your knowledge, and we have a small gift as a token of our gratitude. And
Thank you
just to
very
remind you all again, all the slides and all the presentations will be available on the library's homepage afterwards. Right. And also, sorry, who's the lady who just left?
Oh, was it Alison
From
Postgraduate Skills?
postgraduate skills. She just wanted me to mention that some pamphlets and information is available